Okay, this is my second video on bearings, and now what we're going to do is jump right into solving some problems. Okay, so here I've got myself a problem, and the problem says a ship sails for 75 kilometers on a bearing of 078 degrees. Before I attempt to do anything, the first thing I'm going to do is try to draw this bearing. So I'm going to assume, obviously, before I start drawing anything, I need to start with a north line. There is my north line. And then I'm going to try and get this ship to sail on a particular bearing. So because I already know that that's 90 degrees to go due east, that's 180 to go south, I only want 78 degrees, so I'm going to assume that that's going to be something like that. And it sails for 75 kilometers, so I will call that length 75 kilometers there, 078 degrees, so that my bearing starts from the north line and goes in a clockwise direction. Everything like this we've covered in our last video. Alright, good. The first question that they've asked us is how far east has it sailed? In other words, what they're asking us is how far east must I go until I get to the ship? Or that's my first job. So I've just traced it there. I need to find the length of that line, which I will now put in a different color. So that's the line I'm looking for. How far east must I go? Now, if you're looking very carefully at this, you're going to notice that I've got myself a little right angle triangle. And we've learned from doing our trig ratios that the minute we see that right angle triangle, we need to identify certain things. Like, for example, this is opposite that right angle, so this must be my hypotenuse. And the side that we need to find is opposite that angle, so this must be my opposite side. This is going to be my adjacent side here, but I don't really need it because, well, I don't need it now, so I'm not really going to use it right now. Anyway, let's go. Because I need to find the opposite side, and I've been given the hypotenuse, it means that I need to use sine. So I'm going to say that sine of 78 degrees is equal to opposite, which is the side I need to find, divided by my hypotenuse, which is 75. If you are struggling to know why I'm doing this, you might need to probably go back and watch that video on trig ratios, and this is going to help you to understand what I'm doing here. Okay, let's go. I need to find the opposite side. Maybe I shouldn't call it the opposite side. So maybe we should just give it a name, shouldn't we? Let's for now, so let's rub that out. So let's call that side x. So we're going to call it x, okay? Opposite over hypotenuse. There we go. Now I need to get rid of this 75. I will multiply by 75 to bring it over there. So I'm going to say that that's what I'm doing. I'm multiplying by 75, which gives us 75 times sine 78, and that equals to x. We do a quick bit of calculation, typing it in exactly as we see it in the exactly as we see it here. This gives us 73.4 kilometers. So basically, we need to go 74.4 kilometers east in order to get in line with that ship. That's the line there. The next question is, how far north has it traveled? Well, if you haven't guessed it yet, they're basically asking you now, if the ship started off from here, how far north must we go until we're in line with the ship? how far north must we go until we're in line with the ship? So we need to find the length of this line. And yes, you're probably thinking, okay, maybe I can use sine, cosine, or tan. And yes, you might be right, or you are right. You can use sine, cosine, or tan, but I would not use it because I want to make my life nice and easy and simple, so I will use a quicker method. I already know that this x is 73.4 degrees, 0.4 kilometers. Since I already know two sides of this triangle, which is a right angle triangle, I think I will use Pythagoras to find this third side here because it's quicker, well, and nicer, and it reminds me also of Pythagoras and how to use it. So I already know that this is my hypotenuse, so it has to come first. So here we go, 75 square is equal to 73.4 square plus, I didn't name that side. Let's call it y. So y square. Now I need to find y. I will bring this over to that other side, doing inverse operation, which will now give me 75 square minus 73.4 square is equal to y square. A quick bit of working out gives us 243.2, which we will need to square root in order to find y. I will do that working out up here. So we square root 243.2 to then get y, which will give us 15.6 kilometers. So here are our answers. The ship needs to travel you need to travel 16.6 kilometers north in order to be in line with that ship. Okay, let's look at one more problem before I let you go and try some on your own. Okay, so here we have a new problem, and in this problem it says Kent is 17 miles from Stanley on a bearing of 210 degrees. And I would be keen to just draw that first, just to make sure that I am quite happy with my diagram and I know where everything's going. As I said before, you don't start drawing without your north line. So here is my north line there. And my next job is to work out where this 210 bearing will be. Well, that's due east, that's 90 degrees. Let's put a little 90 there. This is due south, that's 180 degrees. This is due west at 270 degrees. So since I know that that's 270 and I want 210, I am going to say that what I'm looking for should be somewhere about there. Okay, so that's my 210 degrees. The first question is, how far south of Stanley is Kent? I forgot to label this, shouldn't I? I should have labeled this. So we're starting from Stanley. Probably should put this in a different color. So here we go. This is Stanley down here, and this is Kent down here. And they're 17 miles away, and this is my bearing of 210 degrees. 210. Fantastic. Now I can do some neat things with this. The first thing they want to know is how far south of Stanley is Kent. The question they're asking me is how far south must I go until I get in line with Kent. So Kent is there, but this is what they want to know. How far south must I go? So what I'm going to do is I'll finish off this triangle because I'd like to see what I'm actually dealing with. So that will come down like so, and this will come across in that sort of way. And now I've got a little triangle there. Now, I've got some very unique things going on here, because before I can actually work this out, well, there's so many ways I can go around this, but I'll go this way. I will go first of all by finding this little angle in here. Now, I already know that this whole line is 180, because if you add all the angles on a straight line, you get 180, so that's 180. But I also know the whole angle is 210. So to find this little angle in here, all I need to do is 210 minus 180, and that's going to give me 30 degrees. So I know that in here is 30 degrees. And now that I know that, well, I can do some pretty nifty things now, because this is the side I need to find, and I already know that this is 17. So let's label them up. Let's get them all labeled up so we know what we're dealing with. This is going to be my height. Let's get the color right. So this is going to be my hypotenuse there. And this little side is going to be my adjacent side, because I know that this is my opposite side there. So because I'm using hypotenuse and adjacent, I will use cos. So I'm going to say that cos of 30 degrees is adjacent over hypotenuse, and I'll leave my adjacent side as A and my hypotenuse as 17, because that's the length, that's how far Kent is from Stanley. So adjacent over hypotenuse will give me A divided by 17. I need to remove the 17 from here, it's dividing, and multiply it over there. And I will get 17 times cos 30 is equal to A. And just as you see it, I will do it in the calculator to find out what that distance is going to be, and it turns out to be 14.7 miles. So that's how far south you need to go until you're in line with Kent. The next question is, how far east of Stanley is Kent? Okay, probably should have been the other way around. How far east of Kent is Stanley? I think that's what the question should say. So I'll just do a quick swap over here. I'll do it in a different color, because you need to know that, yes, I did write it wrong. How far east of Kent is Stanley? Okay, there we go. Sorted. So, in other words, they're asking you for the length of this line. Again, I'm going to be a little bit cheeky here, and I will not use sine, cosine, or tan. I'm just going to go straight for using Pythagoras, because that makes sense to me. I already know that this side is 14.7 miles, and I now need to find this side here. And remember, with Pythagoras, the hypotenuse always comes first. So let's get going. So I'm going to start by saying 17 square is equal to 14.7 square plus, oh, well, I've already got an O there, so I'm just going to keep the O and say O square. Do a quick bit of rearranging to get this on that side, and I'm going to get 17 square minus 14.7 square is equal to O square. Right, quick bit of calculation gives us 72.91 is equal to O square, and by now you guys should be absolute experts at this. To get rid of the square, I need to square root my 72.91 in order to find what O is, and that is going to give us an answer of 8.5 miles. So, in other words, we need to travel 8.5 miles east of Kent in order to get in line with Stanley. Alright, so that's all for now on bearings, the second video on bearings. I hope that was informative. You can try some questions of your own. Don't forget, draw the diagram first, and don't forget, always start at the north line and go in a clockwise direction. Remember, north is always 0.